The year is 1348. Europe is on the brink of its darkest chapter. A disease we now know as the Black Death has begun its relentless march across the continent. Over the next few years, it will claim the lives of nearly half of Europe's entire population. They blamed it on the wrath of God, on bad air, on witchcraft. They had no idea their true enemy was microscopic. And they had no idea that help was about to arrive from a world that hadn't even been born yet. In a flash of light, deep within a filthy medieval alley, a figure appears. It's Dr. Evelyn Reed, an epidemiologist from the World Health Organization, clad in a modern hazmat suit. She has just time-traveled into a nightmare. As she removes her protective gear, the horror of the scene truly sinks in. She sees the infamous plague doctors in their beak masks, stuffed with herbs to ward off the so-called bad air. She watches people praying desperately over the sick, kissing holy relics, and crowding into churches for mass each act, a death sentence in disguise. The first thing a 21st century epidemiologist would realize is that the medieval treatments for the plague weren't just useless, they were actively accelerating its spread. Their central, fatal mistake was the miasma theory, the belief that disease was carried by foul smells. Evelyn knew the truth. The pathogen wasn't bad air. The vectors were fleas. The reservoir was rats. Her advantage was absolute. She knew the enemy intimately, down to its genetic code. But how could she possibly convince a world that believed in demons, not microbes? Her first challenge wasn't fighting the plague. It was fighting centuries of superstition. Evelyn makes her way to a local monastery, where monks are trying their best to care for the sick. She watches as they use the same unwashed rags for every patient, never cleaning their hands, staying in close contact with the dying. She knows she must act. Approaching the abbot, she says, "The sickness is not a spirit. It is a tiny, invisible seed passed through touch and filth. Allow me to show you." She couldn't explain germ theory, the concept was centuries away. So she used an analogy they could understand, framing it as a kind of invisible contamination. She introduces simple, yet revolutionary, protocols. Wash hands with soap and lye. Boil all rags and cloths after each use, and, most importantly, keep the sick strictly separated from the healthy. This was her first major break from medieval thinking, not just to pray, but to act. The monks are deeply skeptical at first. But after just 1 week, the death rate in their wing of the monastery drops by 20%. The abbot, seeing the undeniable results, begins to believe her. He sees that her methods, strange as they are, actually work. With the abbot's support, Evelyn gets an audience with the local baron. She unrolls a map of the city and begins to illustrate how the plague is spreading, not randomly, but along trade routes and through crowded neighborhoods. Her next weapon was purely mathematical. Epidemiology, after all, is the science of data. She explains the concept of quarantine. The word itself wouldn't even be coined in Italy for several more years, but Evelyn brought the idea to them, fully formed. Shut the city gates for 40 days, she advises. No one in, no one out. Burn the garbage in designated pits outside the walls, and declare war on the rats. To a ruler whose wealth and power depended on trade, closing the city was unthinkable, and declaring an all-out war on rats. It sounded completely absurd. This was her greatest challenge yet, a battle against deep-seated economic and political inertia. The baron had to choose between his treasury and the lives of his people. Based on the advice of a mysterious woman with impossible knowledge. The city is placed under lockdown. The gates are barred. Trade grinds to a halt. As the days turn into weeks, food becomes scarce. The townspeople, trapped and terrified, fueled by panic and superstition, form a mob. They blame the foreign witch, Evelyn, for their suffering. This is where a plan can fall apart. You can have the cure for a disease, but still lose the battle against human fear. Her scientific methods seemed cruel and pointless to them. They wanted a divine miracle, not a 40-day quarantine. The mob marches on the town hall, torches held high, ready to drag her out. The situation is about to explode. But just as they reach the doors, the Baron himself steps out onto the balcony. He holds up his hand for silence. He tells the crowd that his own family, his own household, has been spared from the sickness because they followed the woman's strange rules. He defends her, not with force, but with the simple, undeniable truth of his own experience. It's a turning point, not just for Evelyn, but for the entire city. Several months passed. The city, where Evelyn implemented her rules, is visibly different. It's cleaner. The streets are clear of refuse. The mortality rate inside its walls is a mere 16%, while in neighboring towns, it's a horrifying 50 to 60%. The city has become an island of hope in a vast, dark sea of plague. Evelyn couldn't invent antibiotics or a vaccine. She didn't have the technology to eradicate the Black Death from the face of the earth. But in one isolated city, she saved tens of thousands of lives using the most powerful weapon humanity has ever known, the scientific method. As she looks out over the city from a high tower, she knows her work has only just begun. Soon, rumors of the city that defeated the plague will begin to spread across Europe, carrying with them not a cure, but an idea that could change the world. This story shows that the greatest battles aren't always won on the battlefield, but in the minds of the people. It's about knowledge overcoming fear. So, what other modern knowledge do you think could have fundamentally changed the past? Share your ideas in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe for more breakdowns just like this one.